But anyways, going into first and 10, we are going to the NCAA. College football is back. I am so excited. This is, I love watching college football and seeing, especially for me as someone that works, with high school students, high school student athletes in Arizona and at national events. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking about King of the Game. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you'll see my shirt with the crown as well as the hat with the crown. King of the Game, King of the Game, sports media, best in high school sports highlights. Make sure you subscribe to that page. I believe I could still leave a link here, right there for King of the Game. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you check out that page, subscribe, and show some support because I'm working with high school athletes, just giving them a platform for exposure. But anyways, it's cool to watch these guys go from high school to college and see how they progress. So there was a lot of games that I was looking at, especially with some of the guys that I've worked with. Out of high school and are now in, at Power 5 programs. So the first one I'll actually start off with, actually it's unfortunate, but I'll start off with Louisiana Lafayette versus Iowa State. Now I'm just going to go over the games where there were ranked teams, similar to last week. I know I reviewed several games that are for just the ranked teams. I'll be going over those games right now. But the first one I'll be going over is Louisiana Lafayette versus Iowa State, and honestly is the biggest upset I would believe in college football this past weekend. So you got Iowa State, you got me over here pumping up Brock Purdy last week, saying that he's going to be a first round quarterback, potential dark horse for Heisman, solid quarterback, and he comes out and lays a dud, man. I mean, it was a bad game for Brock Purdy. It was not great. Louisiana Lafayette is an up and coming program. I know they got a head coach from Arizona State, and I'll actually go through that in a little bit. But man, they just outplayed Iowa State. They were very close in the first half. Iowa State was up 14-10, and at that point, at halftime, when I seen Iowa State was up 14-10, I was very concerned for Iowa State that they were allowing Louisiana Lafayette to continue to stay like right there, step for step with them. Again, Brock Purdy did not do good. 16-35, 145 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. He did lose some talent. Let's not make light of that. He did lose some talent on offense when it comes to offensive line and the receiving core. But man, it still wasn't. I mean, 16-35, 145. These are pedestrian numbers for Brock Purdy. 35 yards on the ground on 7 carries. Not good. Not good for Brock Purdy. He accounted for, what was that? 180 yards total and one turnover. Brees Hall, the running back, did fairly solid. 20 carries, 103 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, Iowa State did not look good. They it's probably gonna be a rough season for Iowa State. It's unfortunate. Again, I'm a big fan of Brock Purdy. He went out to high school out here in Arizona and Gilbert at Perry High School. Won play of the year his senior year, and that was over Spencer Rattler, who was a junior at the time. And I thought Spencer Rattler was well deserving of the reward, but that just shows you that Brock Purdy was that good that people thought that he was the best player in Arizona when you had guys like Spencer Rattler, Bijan Robinson, some of the best guys that ever come out of Arizona. He got the player of the year past those guys. So it's very interesting to see Brock Purdy put up a game like this. I'm not used to seeing that, but I do anticipate that Brock Purdy will come back strong. He will make sure that he rights the wrong, because a performance like this is not good. If he continues these type of performances, I expect him to stay for another year, stay for a senior season. But let's hope that he's able to right the wrong and lead Iowa State to be competitive in the Big 12, because this is not a good start. It's not a good start, especially with the teams that are in the Big 12. Now, there are some other embarrassing teams that we're going to talk. Well, I don't know if we're going to talk about now, but Kansas State lost. I mean, that was also embarrassing for Kansas State to lose. But then you got 2 powerhouses in the Big 12, and we anticipated this with Oklahoma and Texas. I'll get into those teams a little bit later, but Iowa State, they need to pick it up. Brock Purdy, come on, man. Come on. I believe in you, man. I'm not gonna trash you on here, but I got to keep it a buck. I can't have a podcast and take it easy on my boys, man. You gotta pick it up. If you're going to be the quarterback that I say you are, like a first round quarterback, you cannot allow these things to happen. The next game we're going to be talking about is Syracuse and North Carolina. So this one I actually was very skeptical on North Carolina. I thought that was going to be a tough game, and it actually was for the first half. Syracuse went into the half with the lead 7-3. And they were actually leading at the end of the third quarter. So it was 10-6. But North Carolina, my mistake. North Carolina went into halftime 7-3. And again, it was a very close game. They ended up, they were at the end of the third quarter. North Carolina was only up 10-6. So Syracuse was right there. The offense was horrendous. Offense for Syracuse was horrendous. Tommy DeVito, I know I heard a lot of talk about him coming into the season. They were expecting him to have a better season. This wasn't it. He looked very bad. He was missing wide open receivers. If they had a quarterback that was able to hit a deep route, I honestly would not be surprised if Syracuse probably would have. It would have been a lot closer, or they would have won the game because the quarterback play was really bad for Syracuse. Their defense did all they could and then ended up breaking in the fourth quarter. I mean, you can't allow your defense to continue to go out there and not help them out as far as like field position, turnovers. I mean, you gotta help the defense out. You gotta help the defense out. They couldn't get a running game, unfortunately. I mean, Tommy DeVito was their leading rusher. Unfortunately, my boy, another guy that I've worked with over here in Arizona, Jawar Jordan, was getting his first start at Syracuse. So the two top running backs had opted out. So this left him with an opportunity to get some carries and start. So unfortunately, he didn't have a great game either. The blocking for the lanes just weren't there. Plus, he's also a little bit smaller of a running back. So he had 14 carries for 26 yards. 1.9 average. That's not good. But knowing Jawar, he's a competitive guy. He's going to come back stronger. He's going to continue to hit that weight room. He's going to come back stronger and try to take advantage of this opportunity, man. You only get so many of these opportunities. I know that Syracuse ended up bringing in Markenzie Pierre because Jawar Jordan just wasn't getting it done on the ground. Try to bounce a few of them onto the outside, which is understandable because he has speed like that. His speed is ridiculous. But sometimes you just can't bounce it against good teams. Like you can't always bounce everything to the outside. But Syracuse, again, they put up a good fight, and I was anticipating this. I was like, okay, Syracuse, I know North Carolina was favored by, I want to say like 18-20. And I was like, Syracuse might be able to cover that. But the fourth quarter, North Carolina scored 21 points and, ended up winning 31-6. So it is what it is. North Carolina was able to get their feet underneath them. It took Sam Howell a little bit longer. I know he had a couple bad interceptions. Syracuse defense again did as much as it could to keep Syracuse in the game, but without offense, it's demoralizing, man. When you're playing defense and the offense is not scoring points, and you're keeping a team that is ranked with a Heisman candidate quarterback, to 10 points in the first three quarters, that's a win for them. That's a win. That's a win. That's a win for them. Syracuse defense, it was better than people thought, and I figured Syracuse was going to give him a tough game. You guys can go ahead and rewind the track, go back to last podcast. I didn't say they're going to win. I didn't say that. Let me just clear that up. I didn't say they're going to win, but I said that they're going to give them a tough game, and that's exactly what they did. But North Carolina ended up pulling away in the fourth quarter. So Sam Howell ended up with 25 out of 34, 295 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He needs to clean up those picks because one of them was really bad. The other one he kind of just threw up for grabs, and it got picked off by one of the best safeties in the ACC. Um, yeah, it just wasn't good. So Andre Cisco, the safety for Syracuse, is legit. The dude is legit. I think he led the ACC interceptions last year. I may be wrong, but he is the leading he is leading the team in interceptions the last couple of years. So keep an eye out for him. He's definitely going to the league. His ball skills when Sam Howell threw that ball in the air was pretty solid. So North Carolina, I believe they go against Charlotte next week or this week. So I anticipate a big game from them. So yeah, we'll go on to the next game, and that game is going to be Duke and Notre Dame. Now, this one I honestly did not watch, so I don't have much information on here. But after looking at the highlights and everything I've seen, I mean, Notre Dame didn't look that. They're not as impressive as people thought they were. Again, pulled away in the fourth quarter, but went into the fourth quarter at 17-13. So Duke was actually giving them a game. Notre Dame ended up winning 27-13. I believe they're playing an ACC schedule, so we'll see how Notre Dame does. But, Notre Dame, I don't anticipate them to be in the playoff run. They're just, going around trying to collect these checks by playing games. But, nothing but respect to them. But also, let's see, Ian Book, so the quarterback for Notre Dame, 19-31, 263, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Looks like Karen Williams, the running back for Notre Dame, 19 carries, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, was really the person that was keeping Notre Dame afloat. He also added 2 catches for 93 yards. So it looked like he was the one that was really carrying Notre Dame and helping them, get this win over Duke. So Notre Dame, I'll keep an eye on them, but I don't anticipate them being in the run for the college football playoffs by any means or by any stretch. The next game, we're going back to the Big 12, and we're going Mississippi State versus the Oklahoma Sooners. This is a game that first of all, it was hard to watch because the damn thing was pay-per-view. You got to pay $60 to watch the damn game. Hopefully, I'll be able to watch the Oklahoma game this year. I'm still working on that. We'll see if we're able to do that. I was under the impression that Oklahoma was not going to have any fans at their games. It looked like they did have fans at the games or at the game. So I'll be working on going to Oklahoma game. But, man, this game is exactly what I thought it would be. I thought Oklahoma would win a little bit more, but, they took care of business like they should have. So season opener, new quarterback, Spencer Rattler. So number 2 in the Heisman voting right now as far as live odds in Vegas. Spencer Rattler came out and absolutely lit it up like he should have. Honestly, he should have versus Missouri State. 14 for 17, 290 yards, 4 touchdowns in the first half. And honestly, for those of you that watched the game, those 3 misses, I believe 2 of them were drop touchdown passes. So he really should have had 6 touchdown passes and over 300 yards in the first half. But again, there were 2 big drops where he had it right on the money, and these receivers just flat out dropped it. So Spencer Rattler, great debut for Oklahoma. This is what we anticipated from Spencer Rattler, number 1 quarterback coming out of high school in 2019. One of the first quarterback that Lincoln Riley was able to recruit and groom. The other 3 quarterbacks that he had coached and groomed into either Heisman winners or Heisman candidates were all transfers. So Spencer Rattler looks like Lincoln Riley got his quarterback, and I knew that, but now I think the world knows that because Spencer Rattler came in and killed it. Now, just to give you a comparison, so Spencer Rattler went 14-17, right? 290 yards, 4 touchdowns. So Tanner Mordecai, who was the backup quarterback that was competing with Spencer, that Spencer beat out for the starting quarterback job. All fairness to Tanner Mordecai, he was injured. So they were saying that also affected the ability to compete, which helped Spencer get the starting job. I was under the impression Spencer would probably would have gotten the starting job either way. But Tanner Mordecai also very similar, threw it 14 for 17, 14 completions on 17 attempts. That is as close as far as comparison goes. That's as close as he got to Spencer Rattler, because everything else was not close at all. Yards, 157 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 horrible pick in the red zone. I mean, terrible pick. For those of you that took Oklahoma minus 48.5, for those of you that are betting, whoever took Oklahoma minus 48.5, go ahead and blame Tanner Mordecai, because all he had to do was either not throw a pick or throw a touchdown, and they would have covered. Oklahoma would have covered. Chandler Morris honestly looked more impressive in his 2 throws than Tanner Mordecai looked on his 17 attempts. And Chandler Morris was actually trying to score a touchdown at the end. His receiver got tackled. They could have covered, but Lincoln Riley went ahead and called off the dogs. And honestly, probably Lincoln Riley was betting on the plus 48.5. So I'm not going to accuse Lincoln Riley of doing that. But very impressive for Spencer Rattler. I mean, and they were down big. There was a lot of players that were not able to play for Oklahoma. So I know they have a bye week this week, but they come back, and I believe they go against Kansas State. I expect big things from Spencer Rattler in Oklahoma. It's going to be a 2-team race, and I'll be actually talking about the other team that will be in that race, and I'm talking about Texas. The Texas Longhorns went against UTEP. UTEP Miners. We knew that they were going to destroy UTEP. UTEP is not that good of a football team. Never has been. I mean, they've had players that went to the league, but collectively, UTEP has not been like a powerhouse. So Texas took care of business, ended up winning 59-3. And Sam Ehlinger is putting himself in the Heisman conversation. I mean, Sam Ehlinger, 25 of 33, 426, 5 touchdowns for Sam Ehlinger. Now, I'm still not the biggest Sam Ehlinger fan. I believe if you make him throw, that is a win for you. You want him to throw, right? You want him to throw. You don't want him to run. I don't think he's that great of a passer, but against UTEP, he's putting up big numbers. He got crazy weapons at running back and at receiver. So, Sam Ehlinger is doing what he has to do and has put his name in that Heisman conversation. Now, some people already think that he was in the Heisman conversation. Fine. But, he's elevated that because, again, he was definitely very impressive, and I'll give him credit for that. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Sam Ehlinger as a quarterback, but he put together a great game. Another player that I have watched, and again, this is why I was watching this very closely, is Bijan Robinson, the number 1 running back coming out of high school this past season out of Tucson, South Point. Had a solid game. He was splitting a lot of carries, only got 5 carries, 38 yards, so he's averaging 7.6. I believe he had a 20-plus yard carry or a 20-plus yard run. So I'm curious to see how they get him more involved. But Bijan is going to definitely make noise. Please, please, please write down that name. You're going to remember it this season because this is not going to be regular for Bijan. He is going to be doing a lot of work for Texas. All right, the next game and last game is going to be Clemson versus Wake Forest. Clemson ended up winning 37-13, took care of business on Wake Forest. For those of you that bet the minus 33 on Clemson, you got whooped in the fourth quarter because they let Wake Forest score some garbage time points. Unfortunately, I feel your pain, but Trevor Lawrence already in Trevor Lawrence fashion, killing the game, 22 of 28, 351, 1 touchdown. I mean, this is what we anticipated. It looks like the number 1 quarterback out of high school, the number 1, number 2, depending on how you see it, out of high school from San John Bosco, DJ Ugalele. And sorry, I'm sure I just completely butchered that, but it looks like he got a couple throws in for Clemson. He went 2 of 3, 16 yards. So I'm curious to see how he does in his development, because I think he will be the starting quarterback for Clemson next year once Trevor Lawrence leaves. I believe Trevor Lawrence has also already stated that this is his last season at Clemson. So Trevor Lawrence is making his swan song, if you could have one, in college. He's going ahead and making his he's already in midseason form. I know that Amari Rodgers, the receiver, dropped a clear touchdown pass by Trevor Lawrence. So Trevor Lawrence could have had 2 tubs, but Amari Rodgers went ahead and dropped that. But Clemson will still continue to be. They will win the ACC. They will be in the college playoff picture. Obviously, I don't think anyone in the ACC threatens Clemson. Clemson's going to run the table in the ACC as they always do. And I'm curious to see how they do against other competition, especially now that it sounds like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 could potentially come back into play, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more fire sports takes. And for those of you who are on the go, make sure you subscribe to our full show, which airs every Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a bunch more. Until then, I'm chucking it up, and I'll see you guys next time.